Hello, hello, hello. This is Greg from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Behdad Jamshidi. Behdad, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, super excited to have you on. And of course, before we jumped into having a great interview, I want to read a little bit more about Behdad so you can hear about some of those awesome things. And Behdad started CJAM marketing after realizing that most business owners don't know how to evaluate the value of a marketing agency or assess their own needs. Since every business is different, not only in their needs, but where they're at in their growth process, it isn't a one size fits all. In the past 4 years, Behdad or B has met with and assessed 710 plus marketing agencies and vetted them down to a lean 90 preferred partners across all marketing niches. After pairing hundreds of businesses with the right partners, he's found his skill set lies in the matchmaking process. Featured in MarketWatch, Bloomberg, National Post, and the Financial Post, B's unique background in marketing, engineering, consulting, leadership, sales, and strategy has allowed him to serve as the conduit between business owners and their marketing needs. And I absolutely love the concept that B's been working on. It's really cool in being like the Tinder or the Match.com for marketing and the business owners. But one of the cool things I was listening to during his interview was how he actually built and grew everything. He had his full-time job, if I understand correctly, as he was growing it. I think a lot of times you don't see the behind the scenes on what it takes to really grow something and what that looks like. So excited to hear about that. Even more excited to have you on. B, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am. Let's do it.
Let's get it started then. So to kind of kick everything off, what I wanted to do was just rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more about that story, that CEO story. We'll let you get started.
No, absolutely. So, as you kind of alluded to, I used to work full time as an engineer, a sales engineer, for a company in Canada. It was called TELUS, and I was working with mid market companies, anywhere from about 50 to 1,000 type employee range, talking to C level executives, talking to IT, understanding like what's going on in businesses, and then building out roadmaps, like how do you get from A to B to C. And so that's where a lot of like my business consulting, sales, leadership, and technology experience came from. And then on the side, I was building out my business, and now going up about 5 years doing the business. But basically, 3.5, 4 of those years was between doing the full time job and the marketing. And I started building out websites, Google Ads, SEO. Got to a point where I really just didn't enjoy doing 80-hour websites on the weekend. I was making too much money as a sales engineer to do that. So I started finding partners to work with. And as you talked about it, I mean, marketing agencies didn't understand business, and business people didn't understand marketing. Massive gap in the middle. And I thought, what if I was able to bridge that gap? And originally I thought I could find like 10 partners and just help a lot of businesses. As you talked about, I'm actually at 726 now marketing agencies and partners that I've met over the last 5 years. And I basically kept that list about 90 plus that I work with across all facets of marketing, from fractional CMOs to branding, websites, and all that stuff. So it took a long time to build out this network.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I love, just hearing about your story and the journey. Again, they say the secret to the overnight success is it takes 10 or 15 years. You don't see all the behind the scenes things that are happening, the conversations, all the, drilling down, I'm sure, and making sure that, you're making those right fit and those right connections. So absolutely like kind of love, hearing that. So is it like kind of a really long, thorough process that you kind of go through to find those, I guess those, I don't know if the people that get over the burning sands that actually make it into your list of preferred vendors.
I mean, it is quite hard to get in, because as you do more and more of it, I just am able to catch more and more things that I don't like, types of people that I want to work with, or just like certain things that people say around like their agency or how they run their business or that kind of stuff. But also it gets kind of easier on the other side, where you kind of know people who say the right things. And it's not just about saying the right things, but like truly seeing that. Like today, for example, I was talking to a fractional CMO, man, 25 years experience, has done everything from the ground up, started 3 of her own businesses, has an MBA, just talks about marketing in the way where like, okay, she knows the end to end piece. And it's very rare to find fractionals like that can speak that way or think that way. So like over time, yeah, it gets hard, but it gets easier and easier over time because your intuition kicks in a little bit more.
Yeah, I can't remember who said the quote, but I know it's like along the lines of the harder I work, the luckier I get. That's what it kind of sounds like. Because you put in all that time, you start to be able to hear those things that people probably don't even pay attention to or know are kind of like those indicators of, hey, this is somebody that's really great at what they do, and probably on a deeper level, like you alluded to, really loves what they do as well.
Yeah, it's like finding that passion, that love. Like when you find those people, like they're going to be good, or just like just hearing things like when an agency goes, yeah, we're like 15 to 20 people, and we don't want to grow anymore. We just want to work with like 20 customers a year, and this is the type of customer we work with. Like, okay, you've gone through the ring, and they've been around for like 12 years, right? So, you know what I mean? Like they know who they are, they know what they want, they know what they can help support and win at. Um, and you just get excited when you find those partners because like if you have a customer coming in, like they're going to be happy with that type of partner. Um, it feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely feels good. And you create a win-win-win scenario where the agency wins, the client wins, of course, and of course you've been able to win as well. So I wanted to drill down a little bit more, hear how you're serving clients, how that process works. Could you take us through like how exactly it works, how you're making that impact for the clients you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, with customers, I'm always doing my front end business consulting. So back when I used to work at TELUS, we're dealing with quite large businesses, right? Like 50, $100 million plus. So most of the businesses that I speak to now are between that like $1 and $30 million range. Yeah, you get some bigger, some smaller, but you can pretty much understand businesses within like an hour of like what they truly need. Right? You don't need to do the long sessions we used to do back in the day. So I always will do that business consulting on the front end to really figure out what a customer actually needs versus what they're telling me they need. And then from there, it's a process of like, okay, after I heard what the business needs, I go, this is how I would think about it, and this is the strategy that I would take in terms of the partners that I would look at, and the steps that I would take to get the marketing into the right place. Um, and when a customer is on board, they go, yeah, that makes sense to me. That's strategic. And it's very rare for them to say no because I've done this so many times at this point that they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Um, and so when I know I can help a customer, that's when I charge a front end fee of like as a marketing broker engagement. And then I work very similar to like a recruiter. So I go and I say, hey, these are the people that I recommend you chat with. If you end up hiring anyone, I get paid for successfully connecting, right? And then I make referral fees on the back end for marketing agencies as well because they have their marketing referral model built out too as a part of their sales process. And so overall, that's like literally how my model works. And so it's not a big front end cost like most recruiters because I do get paid on the back end. And it's just that marrying of the two that just creates that right balance of like using me and you're serious and finding the right partners.
Yeah, I love how you go, and I think it's deeper in far as like having those conversations and knowing exactly like what that fit would be. Not even just like, hey, these are the personalities that mesh well together. This is actually the strategy that we're thinking of, and you making that connection to saying this is probably the agency or the company or the CMO or whatever it is, the fractional, whatever it is that could kind of, which is the biggest thing, execute on what that strategy is.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, to give like it just maybe more of a direct example
Hmm.
of one I just had recently was dealing with a customer that was like, look, we've worked with one marketing agency in the past. They did well, but they owned our website and they owned our Google Ads account. So that's like red flag times
Mm.
two. So they moved away from that partner and tried two other businesses, two other agencies that didn't work over the 3 to 6 months. And they're like, B, can you help us find another agency or partner? And I was like, cool, yeah, no, I can help. As you dig into the business, though, you start understanding the founders like, oh, I want to really niche down. We are in the health space, we do cosmetic surgery and all this different kind of stuff. We want to create this like really high end luxury type service. I'm not going to use the numbers or anything to protect their thoughts, but when they said something like that, I was like, well, okay, this changes because one, is it, do you want me to find you an agency that's just going to help you get you more leads based on what your current model is? Or are you hyper niching into this like high end service? And do you actually know if people actually want it? Like,
Mm.
how big's your email list? Have you actually done the research? Have you done the surveys? Have you done the stuff to go like, if we shift our entire strategy, which means we have to shift our entire messaging and we have to fix the website and then we have to fix all of our ads. Like you have to go through a whole process to change your service model to be niche. Have you done the research upfront to do that? And so I told them like you have two ways to go about this. One, you either need to hire someone super strategic that can do the market research before you invest, tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars into this to make sure it's the right path, or do you keep what you currently have and use that as like an additional product line that you add in that 5% of your customer base might use, but you still have your core offering that's making you your 7 figures a year currently. And so not a lot of people will do that. If you go to an agency, they'll just sell you their agency stuff. They're not going to tell you you need a strategic resource to figure out this next piece. They'll pretend they can do it, but they can't
Yeah,
many
I
times.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you really kind of breaking that down. I think in a lot of times in the financial industry, they kind of have a phrase where they use and they focus on making sure that they're doing what's best for the client, best for the customer. They're not necessarily beholden to a specific product or service or marketing channel. So it kind of sounds like the same thing where you're able to make sure that you're giving, because you have this large list and database of people that you can connect with. It doesn't matter as much, it sounds like, who you're connecting with. It just matters more like what service and what impact you'll be able to make for your clients.
That's exactly it. Like, it does not matter to me who you go with. At the end of the day, like, if I match you with the right partners, the longer you're going to use them, the better your business is going to do. And like, as all these things happen, I win. So it's like, our things are aligned here. And a lot of the times, like with my partners that are joining out, I'm like, look, the number one thing I want in my company and the most important value that I have in my company is transparency. So if I send you a lead and it's not a fit, you tell me it's not a fit, because I have other people that can do it, and then I'll give you the lead that does fit. Um, and it's very much a trust based thing. And when people hear that, they know that, like, hey, you don't mess with B's leads, because I'm not going to send you another one if you mess up the first one, right? Like, or the second or third. And I'm always mediating to make sure that, like, that my partners are working at high integrity, and if they're not, they get on my blacklist. I have a little secret list where I start throwing blacklist people in there.
Yeah, no one ever wants to end up on that backlist, but we know that you have there. So you have to reveal that sometimes, so we know who to stay away from, like whoever took that Google Ads and wouldn't give that to the client. I'm sure they made it there on that list. so
Yeah.
I wanted to drill down more and kind of hear a little bit more on something that you said that really resonated with me, where you said a lot of times the clients or the people that come to you think that they know what they want, but they don't actually know what they want. It's usually by having those conversations, drilling down more, you usually find that information. Do you find like that's the case a lot, where people hear buzzwords or hear that the things that they should do, but when you actually have those conversations, it ends up being, something else, or maybe more refined or more drilled down? Do you find that happens a lot?
So many times. And a lot of the times it's like someone comes for one thing and they're like, I just need SEO, or I just need ads, or I need like influencer marketing, or just all these pieces. And when you dig into the business, you realize, hey, there's like no bottom funnel strategy. There's no email marketing being done. No, like, yeah, we send out some flows, but like, okay, then what do you do afterwards? Oh, we send like one newsletter out a month. Like,
Mm,
there's no strategy on this. You're spending all this money on this top of funnel to bring people in and collect their emails, but you haven't even segmented it properly. You're not even targeting people properly. You haven't cross-selling properly. Like, there's so much missing in the overall funnel, um, that when I start highlighting those things, you go, oh wow, yeah, no, we don't know what we're doing. And a lot of the times there's no strategy even at the top end. And so a lot of businesses, when they get to that like 7-figure range, and sometimes it's luck, headwinds, the right place, right time. And when it really gets to the point where like, how do I scale this past what I need? That's when the strategy and all the other pieces come into play, because you can't turn on one channel and get this silver bullet that's going to move you to the next stage. The whole system has to work together. Um, yeah, like I was just talking to an e-commerce company just today doing $45 million a year, and the guy bootstrapped from from 2017, and he's like, I just always thought about profit, and I didn't start running ads until 2021,
wow.
right? 4 years afterwards. And he's like, I
Wow.
just grew it profitably. I did it slowly. I did all the right things, and I just built the relationships. And now he's at this space where everyone he has is in house, because he's at that scale where most people that he's working with is in house, and he'll use one or two partners like agencies when he doesn't want to bring something in house, like video production or something like that, right? Um, it's just so cool to see what, like, the advice that I'm giving is like, yeah, this is literally how these businesses build profitable businesses, not just about throwing things at a wall and hoping they work.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. It kind of sounds like a lot of like how you've been building everything you've been building as well too, and how I think sometimes we see things on social media, we see the kind of people's finish lines, or where they're already even hearing, oh wow, 45 million. What did you do to make that happen? We sometimes don't hear the behind the scenes of how to actually build those relationships, how to grow that to a level, but make sure that you're not, I guess, throwing gasoline on the fire just for the sake of doing it, but you're actually doing it in a methodical, strategic way.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's 100% it. And you kind of bring up a point that kind of always kind of irritates me, where people talk about like, oh, I'm a 7-figure business, I'm an 8-figure business. But when you look at their profit, it's like zero. Like, or
Right.
it's like, oh, yeah, we took home like $70,000. And you have all these like business groups that are like, oh, you need to be making at least, 7 figures to get into this group. I'm like, yeah, but like,
What's your
even if I'm
profit?
making mid 6 figures and I am more profitable than a lot of 7 or 8 figure businesses, I think that has a place in business. It's
Yeah.
just not shown or respected as much, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what they say, it's never crowded along the extra mile. So when you start to have those conversations, you start to drill down more, you start to realize that, hey, you made seven figures, but you made $0 or you made 10,000 or whatever it was. You start to see that how sustainable is this business, how kind of value worthy is this business, and when you start to have those conversations, you start to realize that, and then you start to ask yourself like, what really is success? What does that look like? Are you successful? Are you not? And I think that's where you start to it starts to reveal a lot about businesses and even the people that are valuing them as well.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Some of the happiest business owners I know, or at least the ones that have been building quite well, is like they always kind of think like profit first. When they turn on a channel, they expect to turn on the channel for a while, not just keep like throwing it
Mm,
away. And they're just like piecing together the puzzle. And it's like sometimes it's that like slow, methodical growth that at some point just hits a thing and just skyrockets. I have another ecom customer, like he just been doing the right things, and they've been around for over 15 years. And all of a sudden, like boom, they started doing the right SEO stuff. They started hitting, and now they do like 3 million in traffic,
nice.
like insane. And that 3 million in traffic came over the last 4 months because they just were doing all the building of layers and layers. And finally something hit and Google changed. And whoa, okay, wow. Like we went from getting like 800,000 to 3 million people in less than 4 months.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny how those things work, and that you hit that watershed moment and people think it just happens. But the fact again that 10 years that you put in, or even as we were talking before we popped on this, the gym, making sure, you're doing the things consistently, then all of a sudden you hit whatever your goals are. It doesn't just happen because you went to the gym one time and then all of a sudden you have your dream body or your dream goal or dream speed, whatever that looks like.
Exactly.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, do you feel like that's part of what I would call like your secret sauce? It could be for yourself, the business, or a combination of both, but it's something that you feel like sets you apart and makes you unique. I almost wonder if it is that I'm going to use the word holistic kind of outlook you have on business, whether you're talking with clients or even building your business. It sounds like you're able to see the forest for the trees and see that it's not just this one thing. It's how are these things going to interconnect in order to, reach your goal, or sometimes when it's happening, not reach your goal, and how to kind of alleviate or fix that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of my secrets in my business is everything that I do is typically long term. Like I did all the long term stuff first before I started even thinking about any of the short term stuff.
Mm.
When I'm talking like short term stuff, I'm talking like LinkedIn cold reach, outreach, like email outreach, like Google ads, Facebook ads. I don't even run ads yet, but I will be soon because now I actually have a funnel that I want to build into it because I have a whole holistic strategy behind my email marketing stuff that's like giving business owners a lot of value. Like I was building the groundwork first. And that's also one of the reasons why I worked full time for so long, right? Like I was running CJAM in this for 3.5 years. I was doing like 12 to 16-hour days and not taking a lot of weekend time to kind of get CJAM to where it was. But that's because I wanted to always think like, okay, if I left my full time job in the middle of a recession, if I get hit, I want to have 2 to 3 years of runway without making any money, right? Like that allows me to play in the game longer. And so everything I do is long term based. So my SEO, I do a ton of content. Like this podcast stuff is all content, right? But I do content on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and all these different areas. And the way that I think about a lot of it is in 2 to 3 years, maybe even 5 years, at one point, one of these flywheels is going to take a hit. And when it takes a hit, like that's what I've been working towards. And I've seen other people do it over and over and over again, where it takes them 2 to 3 years. And all of a sudden you go, oh, wow, you started with like 3,000 LinkedIn followers. And then all of a sudden went to 8,000 and then 15. And then within 3 months, you're at 60,000. Like,
Right.
right? It just,
How?
the flywheel
Yeah.
takes effect and then you just let it take control of what's happening. So you just have to have faith and do the right things for a long amount of time.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, but I think that's so kind of counter to what you hear, especially, whenever we're seeing most Facebook ads, most of it saying how we do this in 7 days rather than 7 years or anything like that, or even 7 weeks at that. But I think that's so big, and that you're able to kind of understand that and able to kind of have that patience. And I imagine that there was probably a lot of peace that you had by having and staying at that position that you had while you were building this, because you didn't have to force it. You didn't have to, you didn't need something to work yesterday. You kind of, I feel like a lot of times people come into marketing, or they come into those conversations of looking for that quick fix, that silver bullet, as you talked about before. But I feel like by having that runway, that position, it allowed you more runway to be able to do that and do it well.
It allowed me to do more long term things, like 100%. If I didn't have a runway, then I'd have to be looking at short term stuff, right? So right now, like the long term game for me was building connections, and like a lot of business comes to me from my agencies, my fractional CMOs, other business owners that have used me. Like enough people I've talked to now come in. Like, yeah, I've talked to 726 different marketing agencies and partners, but I've probably talked to 500 plus different business owners at the same time, right?
Mhm.
Like just an insane amount of networking. And just like, for example, today, one of my businesses that I help connect with someone, like they're like, hey, B, we'll like send you people all the time. Like they sent me a referral. I thanked them for it, told them the background. I always like to follow up. And they're like, yeah, B, like you do an awesome job. Like I'll always send you stuff. Like you start getting these fans that like really appreciate what you do. And that's like honestly the best feeling is when I do a match or I do a good thing, and people are just like super appreciative of it because I put a lot of effort into what I do. Because I want people to win. Like no one wants to have a business where people are not winning. Like it's not fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes we forget that by winning, it doesn't mean that somebody else has to lose, which is why I love everything that you're doing because you create win-win-win-win scenarios where, the clients for the business win, the agency wins, you win. Like there's so many different really great scenarios that happen. So I think when you have that mentality and you step into it the way that you've done, that's when, really phenomenal things happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and I want to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or even a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
One of the things that has made me super effective recently, and I mean, outside of like I hired a business coach, was really excellent. But the hypnosis aspect of the business coaching is actually probably something that has been the most transformative. Um, and it's not a silver bullet because I've done 5 years of counseling before. I've done business coaching. I've done leadership courses, all this different kind of stuff. But the hypnosis feels like it's kind of bringing everything together. Um, and it really helps you move. Like I know a lot of business owners have a whole scarcity mindset. They're always trying to move out into a growth mindset. It's one of those things that I think has done the most shifts for me into getting into a much more like growth and opportunity mindset. And taking the punches that business will throw at you way like you're just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, got hit again. And you just like you're back up way faster than you used to be.
Yeah, and that resiliency, I think I forgot it is Carolyn Dreck, I believe, that wrote the book about how powerful, resilience is in business. But, again, I love kind of hearing that behind the scenes because we can a lot of times train different aspects of ourselves and our business and they end up being in silos. But I love how you said that it brought everything together, the hypnosis and having the coach and doing the work, but having that hypnosis seems like it was something that brought it all together so that you were able to execute and not feel those valleys that we all go through and make it hurt as much.
Yeah, and one other thing I'll add because we are talking about a little more specifics here is like just I read this book one time and also heard it on a podcast around how when you're sleeping you solve problems, right? Like you think about the last thing you kind of thought about, right? Like they tell you play the piano before you go to bed and sleep and you'll be a better piano player because your brain will just subconsciously work on it. And so if you're feeding your brain positive information before it goes to sleep, and that's the last thing you thought of, and you wake up the next day and you do this continuously for like I thought I've probably done it for about 35 days now, 40 days. Every night it's about 20 to 25 minutes, and I just listen to it and you go to bed. Um, but if you're doing that, right, and you're just feeding and you're feeding that subconscious and it's allowed to play on it while you sleep, like now you're reinforcing new thoughts of like, hey, it's not as hard as you think it is. I got to put in the hard work, or the world is abundant. There is things out there, and I can get through hard times. Like all that different kind of stuff starts feeling, and you just feel so much lighter. And you start noticing these new thoughts when certain things happen. You go, I never thought that before. It's now starting to stick. It's very interesting, this shift and transformation. And at some point in my life, I think once I build CJAM to what I want it to be and get it to run itself, like this is the type of stuff that I would love to learn and teach other people because I've went through it. I built something successful, and I'm not just teaching you. I actually went through it, and this is how I like tackled it. And here's how you can start finding the tools to tackle it yourself. Because everyone's journey is different. We all deal with different things, but knowing what tools people use is so useful because then you don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. What they say, you can see so much further by standing on the shoulders of giants. And a lot of that is by going through their experiences and being able to kind of learn from them exactly what they've been able to do and be able to kind of implement and execute on that. But I love that. And I especially love the practicality of that because I think they say like your thoughts become your actions become your days become your weeks and months, and so on and so forth. I think so many times we don't understand and realize how powerful our thoughts are. And I think sometimes we don't realize we have control or can even train those thoughts as well too, which is why I think it's so powerful in being able to spend those, 20, 25 minutes that you talked about to be able to think very, I don't know if strategically is the right word, but very intentionally towards where you want to be and how that has kind of played itself while you're sleeping, and it ends up doing so much after that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. It's all like for me, it's all about being proactive. It's the same thing as I do in my business, thinking long term. This stuff, if I do the work now, it's going to reap dividends and dividends and dividends as I get older. And if I can teach that to younger people to get those same, like it's such a cool model where if you can shift the way that your brain thinks. And um, if you asked me, 5 or 6 months ago, was this possible? I'd probably give you like a 5% answer. And now I'm like, no, this is like 80, 85% possible. And I'm like getting to that point where I'm like, yeah, anyone can do this. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I absolutely love that. So, what would you consider to be what I call more of a CEO nugget? A little bit more word of wisdom or piece of advice. It's something that you might tell a fellow partner, an agency owner, somebody you're partnering with, or if you were to hop into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
The biggest advice is as a CEO or just any type of business owner is that you need to build up your resilience and your grit. You need to do stuff that you don't want to do and you need to keep doing it until your brain gets comfortable with that. It's the same thing with uncertainty. I think the most wisest people are the people that are comfortable in uncertainty because that's what it takes to get through business. Is knowing that you're comfortable in uncertainty. So grit, being comfortable in uncertainty would be the two things I'd work on the most as CEOs.
Yeah, and those things are so powerful as we kind of even been talking about. Like they end up building strong foundational layers because you don't necessarily know what tomorrow brings. And as we've even a couple years ago went through something that was completely transformational for everybody and very disruptive for everybody. But those people that had kind of built out or flexed those resilience muscles weren't prepared for what exactly to do, but they were prepared for the uncertainty that happened and not sure what to do or how to do. And, they didn't lose their wits about them. Their strategy had maybe had a change and shift, but at the end of the day, they had those resilience muscles. So I love that just because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We don't know what industry is going to be disrupted or what's going to happen, but we do know if we train ourselves, then we can be prepared at least with the tools on how to shift, change, and not be overwhelmed by sometimes those situations.
100%. No, well said.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So now I want to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And our goal is to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So, B, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Being a CEO for me is running a business that I'm really, really proud of, that does good work. And also, I'm helping enable the people that are working in my company to also do what makes them happy.
Nice. I love that definition, especially that word enable, because I think it goes back to like what we've been talking about during this entire conversation, where sometimes we don't feel or know that we have the ability or the opportunity to be able to do whatever we decide to do within our business. And we think that, okay, we have to, grow to seven figures. We have to have 10% revenue or 10%, whatever it is. We start to hear these narratives and we think that that's the way that it has to be done. But I love how you've been able to kind of blaze your trail doing it in the way that's true and authentic and close to what you want. And I think that gives people permission as well too to realize that they can do it in the same way.
Yeah, I absolutely hope so.
Absolutely. Well, perfect. I truly appreciate that definition, B. And of course, I appreciate your time even more. So, what I want us to do now is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional that you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best people can get a hold of you and find out all the awesome things that you're working on.
Thanks for having me on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. If anyone does want to reach out to me, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So Behdad Jamshidi, you'll be able to find me there. If you ever want to get in contact, I mean, going through my website, you can book a call, you can find my email. And if you want, at the bottom of www.cjammarketing.com, if you go to the footer, there's a resource section on questions that you should be asking agencies when you're hiring them. It's a free resource. Feel free to grab it there. And yeah, that's it. That's the best way to contact me and stay in contact with me.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. Well, to make it even easier, we're of course going to have the links and information, the show notes as well too, so that everybody can follow up with you. But be truly appreciative of all the awesome things you're doing. I'm super excited about the growth and the journey. Again, we don't sometimes give enough light to that journey and what that looks like. So I appreciate hearing you along your journey, all the awesome things you're doing. Looking forward to seeing you talk to the next 700, marketing agencies, impacting more businesses, and having you back on the show. So thank you so much, my friend, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you for having me and some great questions. Have a great rest of the day.
Absolutely.